Hello, this video will show you how to deploy the LaterPay overlay to create your first paywalled article. Now what you're seeing on your screens is a test website which will be used to illustrate the concepts behind configuring the LaterPay connector to monetize your content. But it's also served because you will probably find yourself at the beginning of your LaterPay journey with a page similar to this one. So it can be either your blog or a website, and you are producing some content on it and you would like to monetize it by asking the users to actually pay for the article itself. So what we want to achieve here is to actually have one part of the article, which is, we call it teaser here, which will still be visible to the non-paying users, and then we'll have these 3 paragraphs underneath which will be hidden, and there will be a paywall displayed there, or some kind of a purchase overlay that will tell the users, hey, I want you to pay something in order to read this content. So in a nutshell, what we want to have is this. Now there are many different ways how we can do this with LaterPay connector. What I'm going to show you right now is how to do it in the fastest and the most time effective way. After signing up with LaterPay, you will be given access to your merchant account dashboard. And merchant account dashboard has many options on the left, as you can see here. The ones that I would like to point out for the time being, not to go through all of them, is firstly the dashboard itself, the analytics dashboard here, which is not relevant for the time being. So it's not relevant for the configuration per se, but it will be relevant towards the end of this video, because this is where we are going to see our revenue streams, and this is where we're going to see the revenue once we have deployed it on our test website. As you can see here, there is right now no data for this particular month because we still haven't configured anything. The second option which I would like to point out here is the account itself. Now the account basics were defined by you during the sign up process. This will contain your first name, this will contain your last name, but most importantly, for the configuration that is, this will contain the website URL. The website URL is the URL of the website where you will be deploying the LaterPay connector. So in my case, this is this particular URL here, which in fact, if you look at the article itself, is equal to this URL. So this is a way of telling our backend, hey, this is where I want you to deploy my connector. Now, the third part, which is relevant because we are actually going to do the configuration there, is the connector part. Now, the connector part allows us to define a number of options in order to configure the connector on our website. Now, let's start with the single purchases options. What is the single purchases option? The single purchase option is a configuration category within the LaterPay connector that allows you to configure single purchases for a specific article. So that means basically, if we go back to our example here, how it should look, this is a single purchase. It means, okay, if I pay €1.99, I'm going to get access to this particular article. So that's a single purchase of an article. Why is there a difference anyway? Because there are things like time passes and subscriptions which one can define on their website as well. Let's leave that for some later videos, and let's just talk about the single purchase now. Let's define a single purchase together. So if we click on this plus button here, we're presented with a number of options. Now the first option is the title of the single purchase. Now the title can be anything you want. This is just used for your own reference. So let's just use a single purchase $1.99. Then the second thing is the match type. A match type is can be either exact path or article ID. Now we're going to use exact path here. And what does this mean? This means that our backend is going to match the exact URL path of the article that we want to monetize. So if you're not sure what that means, we're just going to go briefly back to our article here, and we're going to copy the URL, excluding the base URL. We're going to copy it, and we're going to put it in here. So this is our way of telling the backend, this is exactly the one article I want you to apply this single purchase option on. Of course, there are this can be used in a flexible way. So if we omit the last part, this will be applied to all the pages which are contained under this category, and so on and so forth. But let's not bother ourselves with this now. Let's just focus on this one particular article. The other option for the match type is the article ID. Now, one can associate an article ID with the article you want to display overlay on. This is especially useful if you have multiple articles that have the same structure. You can bind them to the same ID, you can associate them with the same single purchase, even if they're scattered throughout your whole website. Let's not bother ourselves with this. Let's just keep it in the back of our minds for some of the future videos. Let's just again focus on the exact path here. Now we have defined this. We have told our connector backend here that we want to deploy this for this HTML page here. Now we have to specify the price. And as the info box here tells us, the price is entered as a number of cents. So that means if we want it to be €1.99, we can't do it like this because this is 1 cent 99. So we're just gonna have to input 199, which amounts to €1.99. Now we can either choose to pay it later or to pay it now. What does this mean? A pay now would actually ask the user to input their credit cards and payment or any other payment option immediately, so they actually have to purchase the article immediately. Whereas pay later is the revolutionary concept which LaterPay offers, which you are probably familiar already with, and it gives the user the possibility to actually consume content, saying that the user will pay for it later. And once the user reaches a certain limit, which is €5, then the user will actually have to input their credit card details and will actually have to pay for the content consumed. Let's just leave it at pay later now. Now, if we click on save, and if we go back to our article here, and if we refresh it, this should work, right? It doesn't. Now, what is still missing here? We have defined in our account that we are covering this particular URL, and we already also instructed our backend that it should deploy it for this particular article, and we told it, hey, apply the $1.99 purchase overlay on it, and that's it. We are forgetting one thing more though. We are forgetting, if we look at how this should look like, we're forgetting what we should leave uncovered and what we should leave covered. Now, in order to do this, what we need are templates. Templates are configuration elements, which is kind of a way of telling which part of the article we want to be sold and which is the part of the article we want to leave uncovered for the user. So if we can define templates in two ways. We can either click here and then click on new, or we can go into single purchases and just add the template to a single purchase. Now, a template again asks for a name, so we're just gonna assign some random name to it. Single purchase 199 template. The UUID is an ID which is generated when you click on save, and this is an ID which is used for in-page configurations. Now, if you don't know what in-page configurations are, don't bother yourself with it right now. Just ignore this thing for the time being. Now, the next thing which you should pay attention to is the content to sell. With the content to sell, we will tell the backend what is actually the part that we want to be hidden and over which we will be displaying the purchase overlay. How can we let our backend know this? In order to understand this, we need to look at the source code of the website. Now, this might scare some of you, but this is why I have used my very basic web page in order to illustrate the concept behind this. So this is the source code of the website that I was showing you earlier. So if we look at, we're just going to do some comparison in order to show you what I mean. So this article has title of Economist Article 1. So if we look at source code, we will see this is defined as title Economist Article 1. Then there is a header here which says some article on economy. There's also this header here. And now we're coming to the content container. So this is defined as div class content. Now, this is this is the content here. As you can see, there is a teaser, then there is first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. Now, Each of them are defined with an HTML element P, which has a certain class, as you will probably see on your website as well. Now, this class is a way of telling what is the type of the content which is being displayed here. Now, we have made it quite simple here for this example, and we have assigned a teaser class to the teaser paragraph, and then the class called hide me for the parts which we want to hide. Now, what we need to do here is to copy this class, and we need to put this class back into our CSS selector, like this. There's just one more thing we should not forget, and that is that we should actually put a dot in front of here. Why a dot? Because dot is usually used as a class selector. So what we're saying here is content to sell will be anything which is of class hide me. Okay? So if we go back to the HTML code, we will see in fact that this is the case, that all the paragraphs have this class associated with them. This will probably be a bit more complex on your website, and what you will need to do is to look at the CSS selector reference in order to understand fully how to hide these things, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Now there's the one last thing, which is the content to display under overlay, which in our case will be also the same like the one we're hiding, so we're just going to put the same class selector. Okay, so now if we save, okay, now it should work, right? So if we refresh here, again we'll see it doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? The reason why it doesn't work is because we actually need to modify our website in order to tell it that there will be some commands coming from the connector backend, and that this website should accept these commands. If this wouldn't be the case, then we would be able to define this on just any website in the World Wide Web, and we'll be able to paywall whichever website we want. So we need to have access to the website, and we actually need to do some changes in the source code itself. But don't worry, this is not a big deal. What you need to do is just insert one line. So if we go back to our source code, we just need to take one line which is defined in the documentation. You need to find where your head is, so between the head opening and closing element, you just need to put this thing here, which is a way of telling this web page, okay, if something comes from this particular URL, which is our sandbox backend URL, you need to accept these commands. After you have added this, don't forget to save this and upload the newest version on your server. And then you need to go back to the connector dashboard. You need to save whatever we did here. And then if we go back to our web page, it's done. Simple, right? Again, as a short recap, we have defined a single purchase, we have defined it as $1.99, and we have associated a template to it that selects which parts we want to hide and which parts we want to display. It is actually as simple as that. If we want to do one last thing now, is to click on Buy Now, Pay Later, which will lead us to the this site is in test mode, no payment will be required, but I just want to show you how this looks like in our analytics dashboard. So if we click on Buy Now, Pay Later now, and our LaterPay overlay says enjoy your purchase, and in fact you can see that now the purchase is visible to us. So all the users that will pay for the content will actually be able to see the content. And that's from the part of user experience. But if you go back to your dashboard now, and if you from connector actually go back to the beginning, to the merchant dashboard, to the merchant account dashboard itself, and if you go to analytics dashboard, and if you select today's date, which is March 19th, you will be able to actually see the purchase here. So you see that Economist article 1 was sold once, and it's a total of $1.99. Now, if you remember, we spoke about a pay now and a pay later option. Now, this was a pay later option, so this is why you will not see it as paid yet, but you will see it as unpaid. And you will see that the unpaid amount is €1.99. So that illustrates how easy and fast it is to set up a connector, LaterPay connector, and to monetize your content within 15 minutes.